Hi guys, it's me, Chaz HD, and welcome to this race reaction stream for the 2022 Emilia Romagna Grand Prix that, of course, finished about, 40 minutes ago? 45 minutes ago. Great to see you all here for this reaction, and of course, make sure in the chat and in the comments to post your thoughts as to what you thought of all the teams, driver performances, the race in general. Of course, in this reaction, I'll get into my initial reaction and just general thoughts as to what happened. And I'll get into more of an in-depth review, I think, tomorrow when I upload more, like I said, an in-depth review of this Grand Prix. But I liked it. I thought it was a 6.5 out of 10 type of Grand Prix. It did taper off in the second half. I think if it stayed wet throughout the whole race, I think we would have got a 7 or an 8 out of 10. But yeah, in the dry, and this is not really that big of a surprise because if you go back and watch old races at Imola from the 2000s when it was dry, we would never get overtaking here really then. So it's not really a track for overtaking. It is still a great racetrack, but it's not really an overtaking circuit. So yeah, not really, the biggest surprise in the world that it wasn't exactly an 8 or a 9 out of 10, but still pretty good. And yeah, in this stream, I will go through all the teams and get into how they all did today in Italy. And make sure to stick around to the end of this stream because I will get into what the plan for content is going between now and the Miami Grand Prix, because there are a couple dates that you need to know in terms of content for this channel as I get back finally to doing stuff on this channel. But before we get on to the teams and get into how they all did, let's first get into the results, as you can see on the left-hand side of your screen. So Max Verstappen wins the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix for the second year in a row by 16.5 seconds. It was a dominant victory. He led every lap, did Max Verstappen today. Just all-out domination. Perez second, the first Red Bull 1-2 since 2016, I believe. So that's what, 5.5 years. Very long time. To be going out without a 1-2 for such a great team. Lando Norris third, 2 third place finishes in a row around Imola. George Russell finishes in fourth and goes back into third, I think, in the championship, or second, or something like that. I'm just trying to think what was Max Verstappen. I think Max Verstappen has gone on to 59 points, and Russell is on... Yeah, Russell's third in the championship because Russell's on 49. So yeah, still pretty good season for Russell so far. And yeah, I think without a doubt, he is driving the socks off of that car, driving very well in 2022. Valtteri Bottas also, what a season he's having. P5 in the Alfa Romeo, and he probably should have finished in fourth place, to be honest. Charles Leclerc sixth, a disaster class from him and Ferrari. Yuki Tsunoda P7, Sebastian Vettel 8th, his first points finish of the season, Kevin Magnussen 9th, and then 10th, Lance Stroll, a double points finish for Aston Martin, something I did not think I'd be saying on my return to posting content. Alex Albon, P11. The reason he's P11, not P12, is because Ocon was given a 5-second penalty for an unsafe release against Lewis Hamilton. That's why Ocon has dropped down. So Alex Albon, P11. And if he was ahead of Albon when they all put their dry tyres on, if he was able to get ahead of Albon, he may have had a decent chance of getting another points finish. His pace was really good today. So yeah, Albon P11, Gasly 12th, Hamilton 13th, an absolute horror show for Hamilton through no fault of his own. I mean, of course, he could be, he could have done a better job in terms of being faster than Russell this weekend, but he wasn't, deserving of 13th. He had the pace. Well, he was deserving of 13th, but the point I'm trying to make is he had the pace to be, 5th, 6th, 7th type position. So 13th is definitely not representative of where Lewis Hamilton would have been today had it not been for staring at the back of Pierre Gasly's car for 63 laps. Esteban Ocon, 14th, Zhou Guanyu, 15th, and then Latifi, Schumacher, Ricciardo, and then Alonso and Sainz, your only retirements from the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix. Now let's get into the teams, and we'll start with Red Bull. A perfect day for the Red Bull team, and they have, after Melbourne, where, you know, Verstappen retired from the race from second place, and it was looking, after Leclerc won, it was looking as though Charles Leclerc was in a commanding and dominant position in the championship, and Ferrari, it looked as though were in a commanding and dominant position. It looked to everyone like Leclerc was going to be pretty hard to beat given the 2 retirements Max had had so far. But this was, and especially with Charles Leclerc's spin, which we'll get onto in a moment, this was the perfect response. Of course, winning the sprint yesterday, Perez getting a few points in third in the sprint, and then getting the maximum points on offer today. 44 points for the team. Exactly what they needed. They've closed the gap now massively in the Constructors' Championship. The gap before the race began in the Constructors was 47 points. And I think now it's 11 points or 10 points in the Constructors. And then in the Drivers' Championship, Max Verstappen is 30 points or 29 points behind. So it is absolutely game on in the championship. Max Verstappen, for me, has to be driver of the day. There are other great performances out there, but he was in another league compared to everybody else. Dominated the race from start to finish and showed once again why he is world champion. He absolutely is one of the top drivers in Formula One. You could argue at the moment he's the best driver in Formula One. I still think, you know, it'd be better if we saw, say, Lewis Hamilton in a more representative car, because I still think Hamilton has plenty more to show than what he showed today. But Verstappen, despite the couple reliability problems that Red Bull have had, Max Verstappen has been, this season, I think, at the top of his game pretty much. The only sessions really where he hasn't been quite at it was qualifying in Saudi, and then you could argue in the race in Bahrain, he maybe was a bit naive in being so aggressive with Leclerc, letting Leclerc just, you know, get back past him straight away by using the slipstream up to turn 4 in Bahrain. You could argue that he could have done better in those examples, but other than that, Max has done everything really he could do. And if it had not been for those 2 retirements, Max Verstappen would be leading the World Championship right now. Because if he had finished second in Bahrain, second in Australia, and coming into this race after the sprint race yesterday, he would have been, how many points behind? 6, 7 points behind. And then after this race, like I said, he'd be leading the championship by a few points. So there is no doubt Max Verstappen and Red Bull are absolute firm title contenders this season. All it depends on is reliability. If they can try and remain reliable for the rest of the season, and, you know, not have any retirements that also lead to Charles Leclerc maximizing the pain by taking, you know, a race win, if they can avoid that happening again, then Red Bull and Max Verstappen can absolutely win the championship this season. And I still think if it gets close between Red Bull and Ferrari and Verstappen and Leclerc, I still favour Verstappen and Red Bull over Ferrari and Leclerc, because this Ferrari team and Charles Leclerc, they've never been in a championship fight. Max and Red Bull have now, and of course Red Bull have people who've been in multiple title scraps, so they know exactly what they're doing. And I think Ferrari still have question marks over their ability to get the job done. And I think today was more so obviously down to Charles Leclerc and his mistake, which, like I said, we'll get onto in a moment. But I still think, as long as they remain reliable, I still think Max and Red Bull are the favourites to win the championship this season. Yes, the gap is still 29 points in Leclerc's favour, But this time next month, it could be 10 points or even less. So we'll see. But yeah, great drive from Verstappen. Great drive by Perez. Got a great start off the line. And then did very well to hang on to second, keep Charles Leclerc at bay. And yeah, great job by Sergio Perez. And Perez, actually, I think Perez might be third in the championship now I think about it, because, what do you call it? Because he finished second today. So I think actually Perez might be third in the championship. I'll have to check later in the stream the actual championship standings. But yeah, great job by Red Bull. Maximum points taken. And I mean, looking at the next Grand Prix, if you look at the layout of the track, it should suit Red Bull. It's very fast and it's very Saudi Arabia-like in terms of the circuit layout. It's very similar. It's going to be a high-speed racetrack. So I think Max and Red Bull would have to be, especially after the way they performed this weekend at a Grand Prix where I thought Ferrari were the favourites coming into this Grand Prix. Come to Imola, basically an away match, if you were to put it in football terms. To come here and get a crushing victory is really a massive result for them. So I think definitely going into the next Grand Prix, we are looking at the favourites for Miami. Now, let's go on to Ferrari, a team who, you know, so much was expected of coming into this Grand Prix weekend, but they just failed really to deliver at kind of all points of the weekend. Friday qualifying, I mean, I know there was a lot of red flags, a lot of disruption, but ended up not getting the pole, and then they ended up getting into the lead of the sprint race, but ended up falling away on pace and on tyres, and then ended up finishing second with Charles Leclerc, when it really looked as though, and I even said it during the sprint race watch along, that Ferrari, if they get into the lead, they should be able to win from there, because I expected them to have the pace, and they did for the majority of the sprint race. Then they dropped off. And then coming into this race, I still felt as though Ferrari had a very good chance. They had a 50-50 chance at least of victory. But then, poor start, you know, lost 2 positions, then got stuck behind Norris for a bit too long, which didn't help in terms of sticking to the back of Sergio Perez. He got up to the back of Perez, but couldn't do anything about him. And then pitted yet again for the soft compound tyre to try and get a fastest lap, but also to try and hustle Red Bull and Perez into pitting, which they did and reacted, and Perez ended up keeping position. But the mistake he made, I mean, I don't really need to say it that much more, but he really, that mistake, and I said it in the race watch along, it was a mistake of someone who has never competed for a world championship, because he simply pushed too hard. The way he was pushing was as if he didn't have anything to fight for on a personal level. He didn't have a championship to fight for. That's the way he was driving, which I guess he's used to driving that way because he's never competed for a championship before. But he just didn't need to take that risk. I mean, I remember seeing at the time him jumping over the yellow curb at that chicane, and it was just lunacy to take that much curb and think you were going to get away with it. Yeah, I just a very stupid and silly mistake. And those points lost, which will be what, 7 points. You know, that's the difference between first and second place in terms of points. And you saw last year how close it got in the championship. It could be the difference. It could be the difference between winning and losing a championship. So this we'll have to remember as possibly a very important moment. But yeah, just so stupid. And from now on, and I'm sure he'll be saying this to himself, he's not that dumb. Even though the mistake itself was really, really dumb. I'm sure in the future, and he should just, if he is pushing hard for a position like a second or a third or even a first, yes, push, but don't push too hard. Don't take the piss, because you've been given a great car. You've had a great start to the season. Don't go and piss it up the wall with silly stuff like that. Because, Ferrari, as much as I have laughed at them before for bottling it, cracking under pressure, you have to say it's really Leclerc's fault, and Leclerc has really been the one that's cost Ferrari this weekend. Maybe not in the sprint race. I probably wouldn't say he cost them in the sprint race, but today I would say Leclerc really is what cost Ferrari a few extra points and really a podium finish. So yeah, just really, really poor. And for Carlos Sainz, I feel a bit sorry for Carlos. Actually, I feel very sorry for Carlos because he didn't do anything wrong at the start. He gave Ricciardo room. Of course, he was in, 4th or 5th place? Like I said, gave Ricciardo room. At the Tamburello chicane, he went round the outside because he knew Ricciardo was there, and Ricciardo clipped the curb on the inside and basically just lost control momentarily and then understeered straight into Carlos Sainz, and for the second race in a row, Carlos got stuck in the gravel. The reason I feel sorry for him is because Carlos at the moment, he doesn't have the confidence. Like, you can clearly tell, he just doesn't have the confidence and the consistency at the moment. And the only way you can get that confidence and consistency is by, doing as many laps as you can in a race and developing it lap by lap. But if you don't finish races, and you don't, you're unable to consistently do laps because of your own mistakes or whatever else happening, you get hit by someone or engine problem or something like that, then you can't develop that confidence. And I think that's really the big problem with Carlos Sainz right now. He hasn't had a good start to the season. He's not had a bad start. It's not been a terrible start. Could have been a lot worse, trust me. But it's been nowhere near as good as it should have been. Carlos should be kind of like second, third in the championship, really, around where Max Verstappen is in terms of points and also position, of course. But he isn't, and yeah, he just has been not that great this season compared to what he is capable of. And, the wait goes on really for him to really showcase what we know he can do this season. Hopefully in Miami he can. It's going to be really tough though in Miami because, new racetrack, and he's going to have to build confidence, somehow around a track that he's never raced around. And then, of course, after that, he has the pressure of his home Grand Prix. Not just the normal pressure, though. He has an even bigger pressure now because he's racing for Ferrari, and not just racing for Ferrari, because, of course, he did the Spanish Grand Prix last year for Ferrari, but he's in a car now that should win races. So he now has the pressure of when he goes to that Grand Prix of he is now expected to be winning the race or at least contending for victory. So, yeah, I feel a bit sorry for Sainz in a way, but then again, I think a lot of it is of his own making, the reason he finds himself in the position he does. But yeah, Ferrari, what a poor outcome to this weekend. Overall, they've only scored... how many points have they scored for this weekend? 17 in total, if you count the 9 points. Not the 9 points. It's not 17 in total, is it? It's 18. Or 20, sorry. 20 points in total, if you count the sprint race points and the points from this race. That's not terrible, but when you're fighting for a championship, you, especially at a home race, you've got to do a lot better than that. And they've now given Red Bull an opening to get themselves right back in the championship. And if Red Bull and Max Verstappen win the next Grand Prix in Miami, even if Leclerc finishes second, the gap will go down to the point where Max is within a race win, or inside of a race win, to Leclerc in terms of points. It'd be like 22, 23 points. So, yeah, not great for Ferrari, but hopefully they don't get too down and panic, because they still have a very good car. And I mean, it's still going to be hard to keep Red Bull at bay. It's going to be a very tough championship fight, I think, all season long. But I'm just hoping they don't get too down about this whole weekend, because it could have been a lot worse. Leclerc could have crashed out of the race and ended up with nothing. But they need to reset, and then hopefully they can go again in Miami. But those are the top two teams. Now let's get into the midfield. It's still surprising to say midfield and go to this team, Mercedes. So the pace was better than I expected. It was still not that good though. They weren't in the, say, top three quickest teams really in this Grand Prix. George Russell, I thought, did an amazing job. Great start that helped a lot. Then got past Magnussen in the wet. And then after that, really, all he had to do was just maintain position in what was 5th place at the time, later became 4th place. Also did well to keep Valtteri Bottas at bay, because really Bottas should have been passing him there for 4th place, but ended up not being able to. So great job by Russell. Russell has done brilliantly this season. I cannot fault Russell for anything this season. He's been literally faultless. So yeah, great from Russell. He's really had a great start to his Mercedes career, despite the car being really not good at all. And for Lewis Hamilton, like I said earlier in this stream, he was a lot quicker than 13th place. If he was able to get his way past Gasly, Albon, Ocon, Stroll, Hamilton probably could have finished in 6th or 7th place. His pace was good enough for that. It was just he couldn't use it because he was stuck in traffic for every lap of the race. There wasn't a single lap today where Lewis Hamilton had clear air. Wasn't a single lap. So, yeah, nothing really Lewis could do. I mean, I still think Lewis could have done better in terms of being ahead of his teammate, but still, he just isn't, he isn't performing at his best, which I think is really down to he doesn't have confidence really in the car and the balance of the car. The car is still very unbalanced, and it's not the most stable car at all. It needs a lot of work if it's going to get to a point where Lewis Hamilton can feel confident and feel like he can race the wheels off of it. And yeah, I just think with Hamilton, there'll be plenty of people who will come out of this race and they'll say, oh, look at Hamilton, he was terrible, he was poor. I mean, yeah, maybe he should have done a better job of overtaking Pierre Gasly, but he was in a train of cars that all had DRS, and because the Mercedes lacks a lot of straight line speed, you're not going to be able to break that DRS train. Sorry, my cat's shouting again, it's so funny. You're not going to be able to break that DRS train if you don't have good straight line speed, and the Mercedes just doesn't have good straight line speed. So I just don't think Lewis Hamilton could have done that much about, what happened today. I just don't think he could have. And it's a shame, but I think in Miami, I think he will, I think he'll be able to do better there, because at the end of the day, it's a new track for everyone. Nobody is going to have a massive amount of confidence in the track. I mean, there are going to be some drivers more confident than others because of results they've had, but it's going to be a new track for everyone, so at least he can be on the same playing field when it comes to getting used to the track and finding out, what parts of the track are like and all of that. I don't think the Miami Grand Prix will really see Hamilton and Mercedes be that quick, because I think the track layout is probably going to suit teams with higher straight line speed, and the porpoising in Miami is probably going to be horrendous down those straights. So yeah, I think Mercedes are still in a really tough position. I don't see it really changing massively in the next Grand Prix. I think they'll probably end up with a better qualifying type result than what we saw this weekend, but they're still not in a position whatsoever to compete for a podium on pure pace or even a race win, of course. So, dark days it still is at Mercedes, of course. They have an upgrade coming. I'm pretty sure they have an upgrade coming to the Spanish Grand Prix that they're hoping will really start to limit the damage and start to close the gap to the front runners. But in my view, I still don't think that's going to happen, because I think the Mercedes car, the reason it's bad, I think is a lot more fundamental than they think. I think it just requires a new car concept in terms of design to really improve the car and get it on a level playing field with Ferrari and Red Bull. I just don't think they're going to come to the Spanish Grand Prix, whack on a couple upgrades and be, fighting with those two teams. I just don't think that's going to happen. And I don't think that's going to happen really at any point this season. The championship's over. We don't even know if they're going to win a race this season. I think there's a big possibility they won't win a race. I'd probably say 75-80% chance they're not going to, honestly. I know some people have said, there's a good car in there. I don't think there is. I just really don't think there is. I think the McLaren, you could argue there's a good car in there. But I don't think you can with Mercedes. I just really don't think you can. Anyway, let's move on and go to McLaren. And then I'll do McLaren, and then I'll come to your comments in the live chat. Make sure to keep posting them, and I'll read out as many as I can. Norris clearly displaying there where he finished. P3 for the second year in a row. Great job by him, of course. Leclerc's mistake did benefit him, but at the end of the day, that's Leclerc's fault, not Norris's. Brilliant job by Lando Norris, getting the absolute best result he could get out of the Grand Prix. And McLaren just go from strength to strength. They continue to cut the gap down to Mercedes in the Constructors' Championship. They're now about 30 points behind. McLaren are absolutely in the fight with Mercedes, I think, at the moment for third in the championship. Unless Mercedes go and get a couple really big results and improve their car, I just don't think that Mercedes at the moment can really say that they're not in a fight with McLaren. I mean, you can see today, McLaren were with Lando Norris. I think Daniel Ricciardo at the back, by the way. I'm pretty sure he had damage to his car. That's why he was unable to go anywhere. But Lando Norris, I'm pretty sure when we watched him in the race, he was as quick, if not quicker, than Russell in the Mercedes. And the McLaren and the Mercedes, in terms of what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, they're not that much different. So, it's not like this is more of a McLaren track than it is for Mercedes. It should be kind of equal a track for both in terms of what it suits on both cars. And McLaren were clearly faster. So great job by McLaren. And like I said, hopefully they can go and get after Mercedes in the championship. They do have access to more wind tunnel development this season because of them finishing lower in last season's World Championship. So yeah, McLaren in a good position. And they are starting to showcase what they truly have. I still am a bit disappointed with McLaren this season because I still was hoping they would be able to fight with Red Bull and Ferrari, but that just, I guess, is a bit too far for them right now. But hopefully in the future they will get there because they've got a very good driver right here who is ready to be fighting for victories on a consistent basis. But let's move back to this. Oh, no, not that picture. Move back to this picture. And, make sure to post your comments in chat, and I'll read out a few now just to see what you guys have to say. If you have any questions you want to ask in regards to the top 4 teams, then make sure to go and ask it. Make sure to do that. Just want to say, if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content like this. We'll be live again for plenty more content in 2 weeks' time for the Miami Grand Prix, the first ever Miami Grand Prix around the streets of that city. So yeah, like I said, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this and smash that like button. Let me read out some comments. Great to see so many of you here. Blade so Vettel deserves some credit for getting points in one of the worst cars, if not the worst. Trust me, I'll be giving him plenty of credit in a moment. Hello, by the way, to Ronan Brady, and again, just F1 in general in the chat. Ronan says, I think Ferrari will bottle it even if they have a better car. Yeah, I think I said this last season that because Ferrari I still think have a tendency to crack under pressure, they need a car that's like half a second a lap quicker than anyone else to kind of prevent the, when they do crack under pressure, to prevent it harming them as much as it does. If they're going to be this season in a close contested fight for the championship, which I think they will with Red Bull and Verstappen, I have to go with Red Bull and Verstappen, because Ferrari, I just think when the going will get tough later in the season and when the pressure really starts to crank up, especially when we go to Monza later this season, where if Leclerc's in the lead of the championship by only a few points, or if he's only a few points behind, the pressure on that team and him is going to be just monumental. It's going to be unfathomable, the pressure that he and the team will be under. And I just don't think he and the team can handle that pressure. I think he's probably more capable than the team of handling the pressure, but because this is his first year of fighting for a championship, it's difficult to say how he will handle the pressure. Of course, last year I made the point plenty of times that Max Verstappen, at the point last year, had never fought for a championship. And what do you call it? He, despite the pressure, he performed very, very well in that pressure that he had. And he had a lot of pressure, especially when it came to his home Grand Prix, and he absolutely had to win to build a slight lead over Lewis Hamilton. He produced then. He produced, I think, to a certain extent towards the end of the season. I know Lewis Hamilton had a fantastic end to the season, but Verstappen was still very, very good. And he didn't make any, silly mistakes like we've seen in the past. So, yeah, with Leclerc, he might do well under the pressure of a championship scrap. He might also just crumble under that pressure. I think, again, though, I think his team is more likely to crumble than he is, because I just still think there are mistakes in that team, and Red Bull are a lot more experienced at this part of Formula One. Let's read some other comments. Bring back Seb Vettel, says Ronan Brady. I don't think Leclerc is that good, if I'm being honest. Oh, I disagree with that, but that's your opinion. I don't think he is in the Verstappen, Hamilton, and Alonso bracket. Oh, that's a comment and a half, isn't it? I don't actually disagree that much with what you said, Ronan. He's not as good as Verstappen, in my view. If you put them in equal cars, I think Verstappen beats him most times. I just think Verstappen has all-around stronger skills and attributes, and I think he's stronger mentally. I think Leclerc sometimes, and I think that probably played a factor into what we saw today. I think sometimes he lets his emotions get ahead of his brain and ends up just going OTT over the top. I think he is, he does do that sometimes. We saw it last season and even in 2020, where because he had to kind of compensate for how slow the Ferrari was, still being a midfield car, he at least felt as though he had to push like a madman all of the time to what you call it, to get the best result possible. And some of the time it did pay off handsomely. Some of the time he blew a great result. I remember the Turkish Grand Prix in 2020 where he made an overtake for second, and then 2 or 3 corners to go, just completely bottled it. Now, if that was to happen with a title on the line, that would be so costly. Losing 6 points with 3 corners to go. That would really kill him in terms of confidence as well. But yeah, with Verstappen, I think Verstappen is better than Leclerc. I think Hamilton for sure is better than Leclerc. When it comes to who the best driver in Formula 1 is, right now, I'd have to say Max Verstappen. And I do think Verstappen was the better driver last season over Lewis Hamilton. I know, the way that the championship finished, it was wrong. I get it, and I agree. But I thought Verstappen last season performed better than Lewis did. But I think Lewis is absolutely better than Leclerc. The way Lewis, ended last season was just absolutely amazing. With Alonso, it's hard to say with Alonso because when he's on it, yeah, but there's some days where he ends up being beaten quite comprehensively by Ocon, and Ocon is good, but he's not great. And sometimes he, doesn't quite get the best result he could. And I'm talking about Fernando Alonso now, not, Fernando Alonso 10 years ago. Fernando Alonso 10 years ago, definitely better than what Leclerc is now. I'd still say Leclerc is probably the third best on the grid behind Max and Lewis, which is basically my opinion of last season. It hasn't really, changed from last year to this year because I haven't seen anything that suggests that Max Verstappen is not as good as Charles Leclerc. I haven't seen anything to suggest that as of yet. Yeah, I wouldn't say Leclerc's not that good, but if he's going to win the championship this year, it's either going to be because of lack of reliability from Red Bull, Max Verstappen makes one really big, crucial mistake, or Ferrari develop their car to the point where they are, like I said, half a second a lap quicker than Red Bull around most tracks. If Leclerc and Max are in equal cars in terms of pace, and Red Bull don't suffer reliability problems, and Max doesn't make a big crucial mistake, which I think is really unlikely, to be honest, then I'd have to go with Max every day of the week. Which is why, I didn't really get a chance to make my predictions for the season that I did make in preparation for the first Grand Prix weekend, and of course my router broke and I couldn't stream for a while. But I did actually make a graphic with my predictions on it for the championship, and I did have Verstappen winning the championship with Leclerc second. So, yeah, I think Max, I think he'll get the job done this year. Anyway, let's try and read out some more comments in regards to the front runners, and then we'll get to the midfield. And there is a bit to talk about when it comes to the midfield. Will F1, a Vettel, Verstappen, Hamilton, Alonso wouldn't have done what Leclerc did. No, they wouldn't. I think maybe Vettel as a young driver would have done what Leclerc did. But the others, even as young drivers, I don't think would have done what Leclerc did. It's just a maturity type thing. Just, again, I think Leclerc was just so caught up in, I have to beat Perez, I have to get Perez, that he just ended up taking ridiculous risks. Let's find some other comments here. Next race will be midnight for me. I think Miami in the UK, I think it's 8 p.m. the start time. Which I have to say, I do like the American or North or South American races because they're just on at a better time for me. Yeah, let's see if there's any other comments. And then, like I said, we'll get to the midfield teams. Lewis might struggle in Miami if he isn't comfortable enough with the car. Yeah, it could happen, but we'll have to see how the Mercedes looks around that track. To be honest, I don't think the Mercedes is going to be drastically better around that track. I don't think it'll be really any worse, but I don't think it'll be dramatically better than what we've seen this weekend. They just don't have a car that can win a race or really get a podium unless, one Red Bull or one Ferrari or both Ferraris or both Red Bulls end up dropping down the field. Will F1, I reckon McLaren can beat Mercedes in the Constructors. Yeah, I think it's possible. I'm not sure if it's, if they absolutely can do it. I'd probably still favour Mercedes purely because Mercedes have better drivers. But it's gonna be a close fight. Let's see if there's anything else I can read. How many podiums do you think Mercedes will get this season? Asks Will F1. They've already had 2, so I think I don't know, 6 or 7 more. They will get some podiums. I think they will improve the car to a certain extent. They will limit the amount of time they are losing per lap to the front runners. But it will still be like a sizable gap. They'll still be losing like 6-7 tenths of a second. But there'll be races where, there's some chaos and a couple Red Bulls end up having problems, or one of the Red Bulls, one of the Ferraris, like I just said. And they'll be able, the 2 drivers, to use their talent and get a podium. Or if, there's an engine blow up or whatever, like we saw in Bahrain or Melbourne, they'll be able to get a podium. But I think really, at best, we're looking at, a second place finish for Mercedes, and that would have to be really down to pure luck, really, rather than them being quick enough to be in such a position. Right. Yoke has a great to have you back. Thank you very much. Great to see you as well, Astrostebo. Mercedes might get race-winning performance in the last phase of the season, says Marco. It would take quite something for that to happen, because, over the course of the race today, Russell in the Mercedes, the highest placed Mercedes, and Russell was in clean air for almost the whole race. He was a second a lap off the pace consistently. That's been the case since the start of the season. Mercedes have been at best 1 second per lap off the pace of whoever's been the front running driver/car. Can they really claw back enough of that to be a race-winning team? I just don't think they can. That's a lot of time to be gaining, gaining back. I just don't think it's possible. I think they could probably limit it down to 7 tenths, maybe 6 tenths of a second, but to get to a point where they could be remotely competitive, they need, 6 or 7 tenths of a second, really, to close the gap enough to where the drivers could make a difference to win a race. That's a lot. That is really a lot to be asking of them, especially when you consider they have access to the least amount of wind tunnel time this season because they won the Constructors' Championship last season. So I just don't think it's possible. I just think they're just a midfield team for this season. Like I said, they'll get some podiums, but they're not going to be front running, a front running type team. Leclerc needs time to. What did that say? Leclerc needs time to get adjusted to the championship pressure. True. That's true. Thoughts on Danny Rick? Yeah, the mistake he made, it wasn't a massive mistake in terms of what led to him colliding with Carlos Sainz, but he did ruin Carlos Sainz's race. Of course, he eliminated Carlos from the race. Yeah. Just blew a big opportunity for a good amount of points, especially for his team. They could have really started to close the gap to Mercedes if Ricciardo, not done what he did. But, yeah. I think he's having a decent season so far, but it doesn't seem to really be any different from last year. He still isn't really on the pace that he needs to be on, really, compared to Lando Norris. McLaren's current form, quite a comeback after the first race of the year. Yeah, very, very good comeback from then. It was, I think, exacerbated a lot by lack of running and the brake issues they had, that they had to put temporary fixes in so they could get on the track. But yeah, good to see him back. Good to see him back. Really, they're at the same level they were last season, where they're like best of the rest, or at least fighting for best of the rest with another team. The other team being Mercedes. But yeah, they're doing well. Hopefully, keep it up, and I think I think they'll go from strength to strength. Honestly, I could see them this time next month being in a position where they're not too far behind Mercedes, and they have a boatload more points. Anyway, let's move on to the midfield teams. First off, Haas F1. I said this during the race watch along, that Haas pretty much have the same characteristics that they've had for years now. They have a good qualifying car. It has a very good single lap pace in it. And obviously Kevin Magnussen is a very good driver over a single lap. But they just don't have the race pace. They just can't look after their tyres as well as other teams. And they just end up not getting as many points as they should get. Of course, Bahrain, they got really with Magnussen the maximum they could get. But then again, Saudi Arabia could have had more. Melbourne, they were poor because they just didn't get the car set up right. And then this weekend, I just feel as though if they could manage their tyres better, they could have finished probably in 6th or 7th place. I mean, 9th place is still a good result. They're, 6th in the... They're not 6th in the championship, are they? No, they're 7th in the championship, are Haas F1. Which is, still fine. And they, it's not a disaster of a season. It's been a very good season, I think, so far. But I just think there's more capable... there's more in this Haas car than what has been seen or gotten out of so far. Hopefully, though, they just, keep developing the car. Remember, they have the most wind tunnel time out of any team this season, because they finished last in the championship last season. So Haas F1 will be able to develop this car to the very end of the season, and hopefully they are going to end this season, pretty quick. And I think they probably will be pretty quick towards the end of the season for Haas. So I think for the moment, at this point of the season, they just need to keep, getting in the points, scoring 2 to 4 points at least, keep ticking away. And then once that extra wind tunnel time, once that effect starts to pay off, which will be the second half of the season, then they can really start to play. And hopefully we'll see them doing wondrous things in the second half of the season. For Alpine, it was never going to be a great weekend. They just don't really have a car that's really set up well for this track. It's just not really an Alpine track. I think the next track we'll go to, Miami, I think will be a lot more of an Alpine track, and I expect them to be very competitive there. But yeah, just not a great race, was it? Alonso, I have to say, very unlucky with what happened with the side pod being broken and getting damaged. Very unlucky the way it happened. Mick Schumacher just grazed it a bit with his rear tyre, but it did enough damage, and then Alonso had to, of course, retire from the race. Such a shame. Ocon, I thought he did the best he could, really. I think, he started the race, was it 16th or 15th? Yeah, I don't really think he could have done that much better. Maybe he could have beaten Stroll, but, it's only 1 point at the end of the day. And Alpine are, they're looking for more than just 1 point in a Grand Prix. They're not a team like Williams or anything like that. So yeah, not a good weekend for Alpine. 0 points for this Grand Prix, but I think they'll be fine in 2 weeks in Miami. I think they'll probably score a few points there, and they'll be right back in the hunt in the midfield. Next up is Alfa Romeo. Alfa Romeo, I have to say, have been very good this season. I think very underrated. They've gone very under the radar. And so has Valtteri Bottas. Obviously, in Bahrain, he finished in 6th. He was heading for a points finish in Saudi. Then he retired. I think he finished 8th in Australia. And then 5th here. He's just been so good. as Valtteri Bottas. And the funny thing about it, he's only a few points behind his ex-teammate Lewis Hamilton. That's how good of a season he's had, and that's how poor Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton have been so far this season. But yeah, just fantastic drive. The Alfa Romeo does seem to have very good race pace. Valtteri Bottas as well is consistently on it, which is great to see. And yeah, Valtteri driving very well. I think the only thing out of this race that you could have said he could have done better was to overtake Russell and finish in 4th. But I believe that Alfa Romeo are now up to 5th in the Constructors' Championship. If they're not up to 5th, they're very, very close to 5th place. And they're looking very good, Alfa Romeo. Just like Haas, they have access to plenty of wind tunnel time this year. And that could allow them to have a very good season. And a very good season is what they need to really keep this team going in Formula 1, because there were rumours that this team wasn't maybe going to be around for much longer. And a good season like they're having is exactly, I think, what they need to really get themselves properly back in the swing of things in Formula 1. And hopefully they can be. A great job by Valtteri Bottas. Shame for Zhou Guanyu that he started from the back, which was down to the accident with Pierre Gasly, of course. But yeah, that's, just what happened. I think, actually, if you look at Zhou's pace, if you go look at his lap times that he did today, Zhou probably had the pace to finish in the points, but just simply didn't have the track position. And if you start at the back at Imola, you're not going to make any ground, because you can't overtake that well around here unless you have very good straight line speed. AlphaTauri, great job by Yuki Tsunoda, one of the drivers of the day, P7 starting from P12. And you have to remember, Friday qualifying, both AlphaTauris were knocked out in Q1 and Tsunoda was 16th. And he progressed, through the weekend and found his way eventually up in P7. Great job. And it does seem to me that Tsunoda is starting to find his way in Formula 1. And yeah, I'm really happy that he's had, a good result. Building off of the good result, very good result he had at the end of last season, which I think was 4th place in that infamous Abu Dhabi race. So yeah, great job by him. Good overtaking, pushed very hard all race long, and got exactly what he deserved. Pierre Gasly finishing P12. He has not had a good weekend. This has been the first real, I guess you could say, poor weekend he's had since his Red Bull days in 2019. It's been that long. I don't know if the car just isn't handling well to his liking. I don't know if it's maybe set up incorrectly. I don't know. But I'm sure with Gasly we will see an improvement of performance from him. Normally, with Pierre Gasly, he is, of course, the main AlphaTauri driver, and I think we will see him absolutely up there again. And in Miami, he will probably be still in a decent position. Sorry, I was just watching the football whilst I'm doing the stream. It's the Merseyside derby. There's a massive fight going on, so I'm a bit caught unawares by that, and it's just funny watching all the players square up to each other and all do obviously none of them are going to do anything to each other. They're all just doing hold me back, guys, hold me back. Anyway, yeah, good result for AlphaTauri, but they're still not really in a great position in the championship, are they? I think it's 7th. I think they are with Haas. They're around that position with Haas F1. Aston Martin, next up. What a day for them. 5 points. 5 very important points, and they're now into properly the Formula 1 season. Honestly, this car was so bad, I thought they wouldn't score a point this season. It was that bad to me out of the first 3 Grand Prix. So, credit to Aston Martin for improving the car. Every team has brought an upgrade to this Grand Prix except for the Ferrari team, which, for Ferrari, probably did backfire. They didn't bring an upgrade because of the sprint race, which I understand their reasoning, but in hindsight, they probably should have brought whatever upgrade that they had. But yeah, Sebastian Vettel, I'd probably say after Max Verstappen, I'd probably say Sebastian Vettel is the second driver of the day. Lance Stroll, absolutely, you'd have to say is up there as well. And yeah, Aston Martin, brilliant job by both drivers. I think really the reason that they have ended up with this finish is mostly because of the drivers rather than, what you call it, than the car being that much better and the circumstances of the weekend. I think that's really helped quite a bit. And it's good to see that Aston Martin are in some sort of position now to contend, because after Williams scored points in Melbourne and put Aston Martin to the back of the championship, I was thinking that this team was heading for a last place in the championship, which would have been humiliating. I mean, if they finished 9th in the championship where they are now, it's still a very bad season. There's no doubt about it. But at least now they can start to build, something for the rest of the season. So hopefully they can. But yeah, great job by both drivers, and great job especially by the 4 times world champion Sebastian Vettel. And finally is Williams. Great job by Alex Albon, who continues to shine in that Williams car. He's another driver who's really gone under the radar this season. Hasn't really gotten the credit, as much credit as I think he deserves. Driven very well has Alex Albon. And if things had been a bit more on his side, luck-wise, if things had gone slightly more his way, he could have ended up with another points finish. That is how good he was today. He was only a couple seconds behind Stroll, who finished in 10th at the end of it. So, yeah, great job by Alex Albon. And I don't think a points finish is that far away again for him. I wouldn't be surprised at all if, say, at Monaco, we saw him end up in the points through him, being consistent like he has been this season, not making mistakes and just being there somewhere at the end, which is a great attribute to have, which is what he currently has in that Williams car. But unfortunately, they do drop to the back of the championship, but they are still in a decent position, I think, at the moment. But those are all of the teams. Let me just quickly read out the championship standings before I come to your comments in chat, because I just want to clarify what the standings are. So let me just read out the top 10. So Charles Leclerc is leading the Drivers' Championship still. He's on 86 points. Max Verstappen is now how many points behind is he? He is 37 points behind, so still a bit of a gap. Wait, is it 37 points? Really? Let me just make sure. No, it's not 37 points, it's 27, sorry. 27 points behind. I was thinking, yeah, surely not 37, it should be a lot closer than that. So Max Verstappen second, 27 points behind. Perez only 5 points behind Verstappen in third place. Russell fourth in the championship ahead of Carlos Sainz fifth. Norris is now sixth. Hamilton is seventh. Bottas is eighth, and only 4 points behind Hamilton in the championship. Wow. Ocon is still in the top 10. He's in ninth on 20 points. And Magnussen is still in the top 10. He's on 15 points. And in the Constructors' Championship, Ferrari are still leading, but now they're only leading by 11 points, and Red Bull in second. Mercedes are third, but McLaren are only 30 points behind Mercedes, and they can absolutely catch them. Alfa Romeo are up to fifth on 25 points. Alpine is sixth on 22. AlphaTauri are seventh on 16 points. A point behind on 15 is Haas, and then up to ninth is Aston Martin on 5 points, and then 10th is Williams on just the single point. So that is your championship standings. Let me just go back to the earlier pictures, and I'm going to continue reading out your comments in chat, so make sure, guys, to keep them coming, and I'll try to read out as many as I can. before the end of the stream, whenever that is. Astro Stevo, is it me or has it been a long time since the Red Bull 1-2? Yes, the last Red Bull 1-2 was the when was it? Malaysia 2016, which was Ricciardo's win over Verstappen. Yeah, that is the last time Red Bull were able to get a 1-2 finish around this, not around this track, around in Formula 1. At least Russell won't be a second driver, says Nick Dubbin. Yeah, I think given how he's performed so far, there's no doubt Hamilton and Mercedes cannot treat him like he's a number 2 driver, because he has absolutely been the main man, you have to say, for Mercedes this season. Thoughts on Mick Schumacher overall so far, asks ArodX34X. Does he need a better car? No. I mean, well, everyone needs a better car, don't they? But he's not performing as well as he should. He's just not. He's not performing to his talent. The first race of the season, he didn't do well enough. I know Magnussen, did very well, and I think that track does suit Kevin very well. He's always had a good way around that circuit. He's always done well in Bahrain. But yeah, Mick, I just thought was way too far off the pace that weekend, and ultimately missed out on a point when really I thought he should have got it. Of course, Saudi, he missed that race. At end of the day, though, the reason he missed that race was because of the crash that he caused. It was his mistake that led to that. Australia, the car was terrible, so it doesn't really matter. And then this weekend, yeah, qualifying was decent. He did well in the sprint and then blew it all in the first lap. Mick has had a poor season so far. If he was in a faster car, I mean, yeah, he'd maybe have scored some points so far, but he's not, he's made quite a few, I think, crucial mistakes, and he's not been really on the pace. Kevin Magnussen is the clear number 1 driver at Haas F1. There is no doubt about it. If Haas are going to finish in the top 5 of the championship, which is possible this season, it's going to be down to Kevin Magnussen, not Mick Schumacher, because Mick just simply, at the moment, isn't quick enough. And I think, Carlos Sainz signing his contract to be with Ferrari till 2024, I think not only was it the right decision for him, it's the right decision most importantly for the team, because obviously if Carlos loses that seat, the favourite for that seat is Mick Schumacher, which I understand. He has talent. He's an F2 champion. He's part of the academy, the Ferrari Driver Academy. But when you look at what Mick's done in Formula 1 so far, he doesn't deserve to be anywhere near a Ferrari seat or even a McLaren drive if he was to, be rumoured with that. He doesn't deserve it at all. He's not done anything to deserve any, rumour with that type of part of Formula 1. I know, he's Michael's son. He's going to always get hyped, and it's always going to be, when is Mick Schumacher going to drive for Ferrari? I get it. And, if he puts in the least amount of good results, then he'll get put in a good car because of who he is. There's no doubt about it. His last name does help with a lot of things. Let's not pretend otherwise. But like I say, when you look at this, when you look at how he's performed, he's not performing like a driver who really, if you're going to be rumoured with Ferrari, you have to be doing basically what Pierre Gasly has been doing in the AlphaTauri, since 2020, consistently getting phenomenal results for a small team. Mick hasn't even scored a point yet. And he could have scored a point by now. We've had 4 races. I mean, Magnussen's scored points 3 out of the 4 races so far. You know what I mean? It's just, It's just not been good enough at all from Mick Schumacher. I mean, I don't buy into the hype as much with Mick Schumacher as other people do. I don't think he's going to be a world champion. I just don't think he will. I think he could win a race, but I don't think he's going to be a world champion in Formula One. I don't think he is good enough. He's not on the level of a Max Verstappen, a Charles Leclerc, a Lewis Hamilton, or even a Norris, Sainz, Russell. I just don't think he's on that level. I think he's more on the level of an Ocon, which is not bad. Ocon's good. Ocon's won a race. There's nothing wrong with being an Ocon, or an Ocon type driver. But yeah, I just don't think Mick Schumacher is going to end up being that great. I think his aim, really, if he could have the career that Michael's brother Ralf Schumacher had, which was a few race wins, a load of pole positions, loads of podiums, and maybe contend for the championship one year. If he can have that type of career, I think he should be very happy with that. Because the strong majority of drivers, don't ever get a race win in Formula One. So if he was to have a career like, again, Ralf Schumacher, who funnily enough interviewed him on the sprint race grid for Sky Germany, if he was to have a career like Ralf, then I would be very happy for him. Because, a few race wins, a load of pole positions, a load of podiums, and again, maybe contend for a championship. That's a very good career. That's a very good career. I mean, we've talked about Sergio Perez. He's had a great career. And Perez has only won, 2 races in his career and had 1 pole position. And he's never been anywhere close to championship contention. So, he can have a good career in Formula One, but I just don't think he's ever going to be really a serious title contender. I'm sure, though, like I said, as soon as he starts putting in some good performances, even if it's only a few, then they'll get him in that Ferrari as soon as possible because the marketing opportunities are incredible. Right, let's look at some other comments. Yuki or Gasly? If you're asking who I think's better, it's Gasly for sure. Alonso is unlucky. 2 points compared to Ocon's 20. 10 times Alonso's points. I know Alonso has been really unlucky. Bahrain, Alonso didn't really get any bad luck there. He was just simply worse than Ocon. Saudi, Alonso was probably on for like a 6th place finish. I would go back in time for what, to see what he could have done in Melbourne. Would he have got pole position? Would he have got a podium? I would have loved to have seen. I really, really would have. But just, the first issue of the gear selection that led to the crash basically caused everything else after that in that race. And then this weekend, good Friday qualifying. Not a bad sprint race, but, okay sprint race. And then, what happened on the first lap and then, the damage and all. I mean, given that Ocon finished on track in 11th place, Alonso probably could have finished in 7th or 8th, which would have been a good result. But no, he retires, and he's just been so unlucky. Do you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of Michael Schumacher's final season in 2012, where Michael Schumacher had so many good qualifying results and had so much potential that season to get great results, yet he just continuously had bad luck. I remember the first 3 races of that season, he qualified 4th, 3rd, and 3rd. And started that 3rd race in 2nd because of a penalty for Hamilton. He qualified 2nd that day. And he only scored 1 point out of those 3 races. Then he got pole in Monaco, but he had a grid penalty because he hit the back of Bruno Senna in the race before. He was 3rd on the grid for Silverstone that year. 3rd on the grid for Hockenheim. 4th in Kota. He had so many great results in qualifying, but for whatever reason, it would just fall away. It was just such a shame. It reminds me of the same with Alonso here. I hope it doesn't continue like that because it could lead to Fernando just calling it quits, which I really hope doesn't happen. Um, let's see what other comments we can read out. Mercedes gives a rookie a good car, 7 times champion, a crappy car. You know, they're the same car. They're not, you know, different like that. Gasly not looking good currently in terms of results. Yeah, he's not been great this season, Gasly, but I think the car performance has, you know, not helped. Yeah, he's not been at his absolute best. Hamilton, another record, place 1 and 4 together, 14. Oh my. Dave Blue says, really intense race for my heart, hoping for both Red Bull to finish the race and praying for no rain. Happy for Red Bull 1-2. Well, to be honest, Red Bull in the rain were even better than they were in the dry. They were, Verstappen in the rain was phenomenal. Easily better than everyone else. Perez and Leclerc on pace just couldn't live with Mad Max. Well done to Vettel. Says Blue Flag Alpha. Let's find some other ones here that I've just scrolled past. Crystal Racing. Magnussen says Magnussen decent, overperforming in qualifying, and at starts once again, hence his inevitable drop off. Maybe. And he also says makes me wonder whether that Haas was VF21 was actually a bad car. Honestly, Roman and Kevin might have scored points in it. Well, they didn't develop the last 2 cars before this one, so I think there was maybe some potential. And to be honest, you can't really blame Haas for doing what they did. What they did was essentially an American sports thing, which obviously they're an American team. Basically, they tanked on purpose for 2 years because of the new rules as to, you know, the lower in the championship you finished, the more development you're allowed, you know, the season after. Yeah, they basically tanked on purpose for 2 years to get that and to be able to concentrate any money and resources they did have on the 2022 car, and it has paid off. That's the only thing I will say with this new system that I do like, but that's the only downside to this new system is it does encourage tanking. So like Aston Martin, for example, if they get to like another few races in and they're 9th or even last in the championship, they may as well just tank the rest of the season and concentrate on next season and deliberately try and finish as low down on the championship as possible so they can get maximum wind tunnel time next season. That's the only downside, but I think, thankfully, it seems as though almost every team is in a state of being competitive for some sort of points or some sort of reward. So, yeah, I don't see it being a massive issue, but it could be a thing we see more so in the future. Thoughts on Albon and Latifi race pace this year? I mean, Albon's doing well, but Latifi has just really been off it. I don't know with Latifi if it's because of the whole like death threat situation he had at the end of last year. But yeah. Right, I'm going to read out a few more comments and then I'm going to probably come to the end of this stream because I've been live for... How long have I been live for? An hour and 15 minutes. Chazza, Bruno Senna versus Mick Schumacher. I'd say Bruno Senna. If you actually look at Bruno Senna, by the way, if you look at his last season in F1 in 2012, he actually scored points. I think more than Pastor Maldonado did that season. He had more points finishes. I don't think he finished ahead of Maldonado in the championship, but I think he had more points finishes than Maldonado that season. But he was the one who got sacked. So let's not disrespect Bruno too much. Let's Crystal Racing saying, "Oh yeah, the NFL MLS draft system." Yeah. I mean, you can understand why in America, because of the system they have, you can understand why they do it, but it gets to the point, like, if you look at some leagues in America, like the NBA, for example, you have a third of the teams fighting for the playoffs and to be champions, a third of the teams who are just, like, in the middle of nowhere. They're too good to tank, but they're too shit to compete. And then another third of the teams are just blatantly tanking for a draft pick. I hope it doesn't get like that, where we have, you know, like 3 teams at the bottom of the championship blatantly tanking to, you know, develop a good car in 2 years' time. But I don't think it'll get like that, because there isn't enough teams in Formula 1 for that to happen. I don't think. I think I'll probably come to the end of the stream then, guys. Thank you for coming along to this race reaction stream. Great to see so many of you here. Just to say one last thing, I just want to announce what my plan is for content on my channel, you know, for the next couple weeks or so. So tomorrow, I'm going to upload a video. I'm going to record it tonight. It's going to be basically a more in-depth look at this race, but also kind of the season so far. And yeah, that'll be uploaded tomorrow at midday. It's going to be basically like a live stream in terms of the way it feels and looks. So it won't be any different. The only reason I can't do it live is because I have work tomorrow. So yeah, that's why I'm not doing it live. And then after that, for the rest of next week, after that video comes out tomorrow, there won't be any more content. But the week after, of course, is the Miami Grand Prix. Now, for the Miami Grand Prix weekend, I'm going to try and do as much content as possible. I'll announce more on what I can do in terms of content when we get closer to that weekend. I mean, it does depend again on my work situation and whether I'm at work or not, as to, you know, can I do content on the Thursday or the Friday of the Grand Prix weekend? I'll definitely be covering the Saturday and Sunday in full, so don't worry about that. I'll be covering qualifying and the race in full, without a doubt. But like I said, when it comes to the Thursday and Friday, it depends on my work situation, and I don't quite know yet if I will be at work on those particular days. But one thing I can announce is that I won't be at work on May Day, which is the Bank Holiday Monday here in the UK, which is the 2nd of May, I think, which is next Monday, 8 days from now. I will be doing a stream that day, so yeah, make sure to come along to that. I don't know what the topic of the stream is going to be, but I will be doing a stream that day, because I want to get back to doing content, you know, consistently on this channel. Yeah, I'll be live that day, and then probably later that week I'll be live again for the Miami Grand Prix, and to cover definitely the important sessions in full, maybe even more if I do get the time off. But yeah, that's what's going to be going down. And now my internet is back, I am now fully back and committed to doing a full schedule of content. So yeah, hopefully I can do that for you guys in Miami. Hopefully as well, Nib will be on for Miami as well. The reason he wasn't on today is because I think it's a public holiday in Australia, so he's just enjoying himself, and I don't think he was able to get back to his home in time to be able to you know, join me and get set up and everything, which is fine. At the end of the day, hopefully he enjoyed himself, and yeah, hopefully he'll be on for Miami in a couple of weeks' time. But yeah, there is content coming, guys, on the channel. Trust me, there will be content coming. As long as I don't have any tech issues, broadband issues, then I know what my plan is, and I know what I'm going to be doing. But thank you guys for coming back for this weekend, and you know, being part of the streams that I've done this weekend. I've done 3 today, 2 yesterday. And yeah, I'm looking forward a lot to next month and the month after in getting back to consistently doing plenty of videos and streams. And if you are new to the channel, then don't forget to subscribe for more content like this, for all of the content I'll be doing and bringing you guys for the Miami Grand Prix in a fortnight from now. And as well, smash the like button and share this video and channel everywhere you can. And as well, don't forget to comment down below what you thought of the race, what your reaction to the race is, what you thought of certain teams and drivers and the race overall. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at ChazHD5. That would be great if you could follow me on Twitter. And as well, don't forget to join my Discord server. Link below in the description for more content like this. But guys, until my review, more in-depth review of the events of today that comes out tomorrow, until then, which is tomorrow, until as well the Miami Grand Prix, the first ever Miami Grand Prix, which I am excited to see in a couple weeks from now. Until then, guys, it has been me, Shazza HD. Goodbye.